In the quiet corners of our minds, shame whispers. It tells us we're not enough, that our true selves are unworthy. It binds us, not with iron, but with the invisible threads of doubt and fear. We hide behind masks, sculpted by societal expectations, afraid that revealing our authentic selves will lead to rejection. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this. He recognized that shame is not just a personal burden, but a societal construct, designed to keep individuals in line, to suppress the wild, untamed aspects of humanity that don't fit neatly into prescribed norms. He challenged us to question these constructs, to peel away the layers imposed upon us, and to confront the raw, unfiltered self beneath. Nietzsche's philosophy isn't a gentle guide, it's a call to arms. He urges us to confront the discomfort, to embrace the parts of ourselves we've been taught to hide. Because only by facing our shame can we begin the journey toward becoming who we truly are. In a small town nestled between rolling hills, lived a young man named Elias. From an early age, Elias found solace in painting. His canvases were filled with vibrant colors and abstract forms, expressions of emotions he couldn't articulate with words. Yet, he kept his art hidden, fearing judgment from a community that valued practicality over creativity. Elias worked as a clerk in a local store, performing his duties diligently but without passion. His evenings were spent in solitude, painting in a dimly lit attic. The walls of his room bore witness to his inner world, a stark contrast to the mundane reality he presented to others. One day, a traveling art curator visited the town, seeking local talents for an upcoming exhibition. Encouraged by a close friend, Elias hesitantly presented his work. The curator was captivated, praising the originality and depth of emotion in his paintings. He invited Elias to showcase his art in the city. Fear gripped Elias. The thought of exposing his inner self to the world was terrifying. He declined the offer, retreating further into his shell. The opportunity passed, and the curator moved on, leaving Elias with a lingering sense of regret. Nietzsche wrote, "What is the seal of liberation? No longer being ashamed in front of oneself." Elias's shame was not imposed by others, but stemmed from his own insecurities. He feared that his art, a reflection of his true self, would be ridiculed or dismissed. Years passed, and Elias continued his routine, his paintings accumulating dust in the attic. The vibrant colors faded, nearing the dimming of his spirit. He often wondered what could have been if he had embraced his passion and shared his art with the world. Eventually, Elias realized that his greatest regret was not the fear of judgment, but the suppression of his authentic self. He began to understand that true freedom lay in self-acceptance and the courage to express one's individuality. In his twilight years, Elias opened his attic to the townspeople, displaying his life's work. The community, moved by the depth and beauty of his art, celebrated his talent. Elias smiled, not for the recognition, but for finally overcoming the shame that had kept him hidden for so long. Amara was a brilliant academic, renowned for her research in philosophy. She spoke at international conferences, published in esteemed journals, and was admired by peers. Yet, she carried a secret. She hailed from a humble background in a rural village, a fact she concealed from colleagues. Growing up, Amara faced ridicule for her accent and manners when she moved to the city for education. Determined to fit in, she adopted new speech patterns, changed her wardrobe, and distanced herself from her origins. Her transformation was so complete that even close friends were unaware of her past. Despite her success, Amara felt a persistent emptiness. She avoided reunions and ignored letters from her family, fearing that reconnecting with her roots would unravel the identity she had meticulously constructed. Nietzsche observed, "He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises." Amara's disdain for her origins was a reflection of internalized shame, a denial of her authentic self. One day, while researching for a paper, Amara stumbled upon a folk tale from her village that resonated deeply with her philosophical inquiries. This connection sparked a realization. Her heritage was not a hindrance, but a source of unique insight. Embracing this newfound perspective, Amara began to incorporate elements of her culture into her work. She revisited her village, reconnected with her family, and shared her experiences with colleagues, who appreciated the depth it added to her scholarship. By acknowledging and integrating her roots, Amara transcended the shame that once confined her. She embodied Nietzsche's ideal of becoming who one is, embracing the totality of her being. Her journey inspired others to explore and honor their own backgrounds, fostering a more inclusive and authentic academic community. Liam was a celebrated actor, known for his versatility and charisma on stage. Audiences adored him, critics praised him, and he basked in the limelight. Yet, offstage, Liam grappled with a profound sense of emptiness. From a young age, Liam learned to adapt, molding himself to meet others' expectations. His performances extended beyond the theater. He wore masks in his personal life, concealing his true thoughts and feelings to maintain his public image. Nietzsche stated, "One is honest about oneself, either with a sense of shame or with vanity." Liam's self-deception was a blend of both, a defense mechanism against vulnerability. The turning point came during a rehearsal for a deeply personal play. The director challenged Liam to draw from his own experiences, to strip away the facade and connect authentically with the character. This demand unsettled him, forcing him to confront the parts of himself he had long suppressed. Reluctantly, Liam delved into his past, revisiting painful memories and unacknowledged emotions. The process was arduous, but it led to a breakthrough. His performance became raw and genuine, resonating with audiences on a profound level. Offstage, Liam began to lower his defenses, sharing his true self with friends and family. He found that authenticity fostered deeper connections and a sense of liberation he had never experienced. By shedding his masks, Liam embraced Nietzsche's call to overcome shame and become who he truly was. His journey demonstrated that vulnerability, rather than weakness, could be a source of strength and artistic depth. Sophia was the CEO of a successful corporation, admired for her strategic acumen and composed demeanor. She was the epitome of professionalism, always poised and in control. However, beneath the surface, Sophia struggled with anxiety and self-doubt. Raised in a family that equated emotions with weakness, Sophia learned to suppress her feelings. She adopted a stoic persona, believing that vulnerability would undermine her authority and respect. Nietzsche wrote, "And as long as you are in any way ashamed before yourself, you do not yet belong with us." Sophia's internal conflict stemmed from a deep-seated shame about her emotional nature. A crisis at work forced Sophia to confront her limitations. A failed project led to significant losses, and her usual composure cracked. In a moment of candor, she admitted her fears and uncertainties to her team. To her surprise, this honesty fostered solidarity. Her employees appreciated her transparency and rallied to support her. The experience taught Sophia that authenticity could enhance, rather than diminish, her leadership. Embracing her emotions, Sophia redefined her approach, promoting a culture of openness and empathy within the organization. She discovered that acknowledging one's humanity could inspire trust and resilience. Through this transformation, Sophia embodied Nietzsche's ideal of self-overcoming, turning shame into strength and becoming a more effective and fulfilled leader. Ravi, a reserved man in his early 30s, had always struggled with intimacy. Though he longed for connection, he kept potential partners at a distance. Beneath his quiet charm was a deep fear, not of rejection, but of being truly seen and known. In his youth, Ravi had loved deeply and openly, but after a painful betrayal, he decided it was safer to construct emotional walls. He built a facade of indifference, masking his vulnerability behind intellect and sarcasm. Friends admired his wisdom, but few knew the real Ravi. Then came Mira, a woman with a disarming honesty. She wasn't impressed by his defenses. She asked sincere questions, noticed his silences, and didn't let his charm distract her from his hesitations. Her presence stirred in him both longing and terror. As their relationship deepened, Ravi felt the old fears rise. The shame of appearing weak, the fear of being judged for his emotional scars. They haunted him. Nietzsche wrote, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." Ravi feared that in opening himself, he might be misunderstood or mocked. But Nira didn't turn away. Instead, she encouraged him to speak his truth, even if it was clumsy or uncertain. Her acceptance was gentle but firm. She didn't want perfection. She wanted him. Bit by bit, Ravi let go. He began to share his past, his regrets, his dreams. He allowed himself to cry, to be held, to be loved. With each step, the shame he had carried began to melt. He realized that the only way to be truly loved was to let someone see him, fully and without armor. The fear that once ruled him had lost its grip, replaced by something more powerful: authenticity. In surrendering to vulnerability, Ravi overcame the shame that had isolated him. Like Nietzsche's call to become oneself, Ravi discovered that freedom begins the moment we allow ourselves to be truly known. Sienna was 16 and already exhausted by the weight of trying to fit in. She loved to sing. It was the one thing that made her feel alive. But her voice was different, husky, raw, and full of emotional texture. At school, however, that difference made her a target. Her classmates teased her during music class, mimicking her tone and laughing. After one particularly cruel incident, she stopped singing altogether. Shame settled into her chest like stone. She believed her voice was a flaw, something to be hidden. At home, Sienna's mother encouraged her gently, often catching her humming when she thought no one was listening. One day, her mother played a song by a famous jazz singer with a similarly unusual voice. "Do you hear that?" she asked. "She sings with her soul, not just her mouth." That night, Sienna locked her door, sat at her desk, and recorded herself singing. It wasn't perfect. Her voice cracked in places, and doubt lingered, but there was something raw and honest in it. She uploaded the recording anonymously to an online music forum. To her shock, strangers praised it. They called it unique, haunting, beautiful. One commenter said her voice made them cry. Sienna reread the comment dozens of times, her hands shaking. Nietzsche urged us to say yes to life. To do that, one must first say yes to oneself, even the parts others misunderstand. Sienna realized her shame was borrowed, fed by others' smallness, not her own truth. With time, she began to perform at open mic nights under her real name. She stood on stage, her voice trembling but steady, and watched as her authenticity resonated with the crowd. No longer hiding, she began to live. Sienna's voice, once a source of shame, became her gift. She learned that what sets us apart is often what makes us most powerful, if only we have the courage to own it. Luis moved from Colombia to London when he was 20. Intelligent and ambitious, he was determined to succeed in his new environment. But after several mocking comments about his accent during job interviews and casual conversations, he began to speak less. He practiced silently at night, watching English language news, trying to erase the melody in his voice. He believed that to be taken seriously, he needed to sound like everyone else, like he belonged. At work, he spoke cautiously, choosing words he was sure he could pronounce correctly. His colleagues assumed he was shy or distant. In reality, he was battling a silent war with shame, editing his identity in real time. Nietzsche's wisdom loomed. Every deep thinker is more afraid of being understood than of being misunderstood. Lewis feared that if people heard who he truly was, with his stories, his rhythm, his soul, they would reduce him to a stereotype. Everything shifted when he attended a storytelling workshop for immigrants. For the first time, he spoke freely, weaving tales from his childhood, using his natural cadence. The room listened, not to mock, but to learn, to feel. He realized his voice carried a history, a culture, a strength that couldn't be replicated. What he had tried to erase was, in fact, his superpower. Louis stopped apologizing for who he was. He embraced his accent, his expressions, his background. He gave talks, mentored others, and even created a podcast highlighting immigrant voices. He no longer flinched at others' reactions. He had become untouchable, not because he fit in, but because he stood tall in his truth. Nietzsche would call this the greatest victory, to become what you are, shamelessly and fully. Friedrich Nietzsche did not write for the faint-hearted. He wrote for the individual, burning to emerge from the crowd, aching to reclaim what society taught them to suppress. Shame, he believed, is not born from our essence, but from the world's inability to accept our difference. It is the collar placed around the neck of the powerful to make them docile, palatable, obedient. The scenarios we explored, the quiet lover, the misunderstood teenager, the silenced immigrant, all share a common thread. They suffered not because they were flawed, but because they were real in a world that prefers masks. Each of them carried shame, not for doing wrong, but for being true. And yet, when they chose to walk toward that shame, instead of away from it, they discovered something extraordinary: freedom. Nietzsche's call to become who you are is not a poetic ideal. It is a war cry. It demands rebellion against inherited guilt, rejection of societal conditioning, and the audacity to shape one's own image from within. The moment we stop begging for acceptance and start owning our story, shame loses its grip. You don't become powerful by being flawless. You become powerful by standing in your scars, your differences, your voice, and refusing to apologize for them. That is what Nietzsche meant by the Übermensch, the one who creates their own values, who stands above the herd, not in arrogance, but in radical self-ownership. In a world that profits from your insecurity, loving yourself is revolutionary. And overcoming shame is not just healing, it is transformation. Shame thrives in silence, but authenticity, once embraced, is louder than fear, stronger than conformity, and eternal in its fire. So the question is no longer whether you are enough. The question is, are you willing to bear the loneliness of being real, so you may one day bask in the serenity of being free? The death of shame is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of becoming untamed, unashamed, and fully alive.